Oh boy, was it an insane weekend over at San Diego Comic-Con where we got a ton of really exciting horror movie updates. Let's get into some of the most exciting stories that came out of San Diego this past weekend in today's Weekly Woes. Fresh meat. If you're a Jurassic Park fan who has always wanted to see this franchise go full-blown horror, you may want to perk your ears up for today's first big news update. Primitive War is a brand new movie that unleashes dozens of dinosaurs into the Vietnam War. Ooh, what an insane concept. I mean, I'm really digging what I'm seeing here in the trailer. I have some criticisms, admittedly. We'll get to those in a second. But essentially what the plot of this is it's a bunch of soldiers during the Vietnam War, and they find this like hidden valley. It's got a ton of dinosaurs in it, and they're getting attacked. They're looking for some green berets that went missing, and I think from this picture here you can tell they were likely eaten. Now, this seems to be the dinosaur horror movie that people have wanted from the Jurassic Park franchise for years and years and years. We've gotten seven installments from that franchise that admittedly are more so action adventure-y with some horror elements, especially in the original. I mean, oh my god, the T-Rex scene from that original movie is terrifying. I love it. It's really well done, but could we get a whole movie of that? That would be awesome. I would love to see that one day. This seems to be something very close. Now, if you remember from a few years ago, we thought we were going to get that with the movie 65, and that crashed and burned. There was things about the trailer that I admittedly wasn't crazy about, and then the movie came out, and it was, yikes. It was a big old nasty stinker, a diaper full of dung. But this one, could it be something? Well, you know, the trailer I have mixed feelings about, because I think the first like 40 seconds or so sets up a pretty solid movie, pretty by the basics film. I mean, it's a sci-fi movie you've kind of seen before, for sure, vibes to it. But I love the idea of dinosaurs running around ripping people to shreds. And if this is even remotely good, I'll kind of take it. What I'm not loving so much is they use Fortunate Son, which has been used in every single Vietnam thing ever. So I'm not loving that. I think top 40 songs and horror trailers just don't work. Maybe if this is like the Minecraft movie trailer, okay, but this is supposed to be a horror movie. Make me feel the horror of your film. When that needle drop hits, it just totally ruins the vibe, in my opinion. So I really was not loving that about the trailer. And admittedly, some of the VFX work is pretty shoddy. But I think the thing that we have to accept about the reason why we haven't gotten a dinosaur horror movie is because these things are expensive, man. You have these, giant dinosaur animatronics, an entire team of VFX people like busting their asses essentially to make this look good. That's tough. To make a horror film with that kind of budget would be insane. It would be amazing, and I would cover the hell out of it. But is it realistic when horror just doesn't appeal to a wider audience like something like Jurassic Park does, or something like, well, the Minecraft movie? No, unfortunately, it just doesn't. So if we're gonna get the dinosaur horror movie, it's likely going to be something like this. That's actually good. It's gonna be something like this that's on a lower budget. The VFX, special effects in general, just aren't that great. And even then, I'd say 80% of the trailer, what we saw, looked pretty good. There's one shot in particular that's pretty rough, but you know what, man? I will take what I can get. If this is anything even worth viewing, I will be very happy. And I hope this rocks, and hopefully it's just better than 65. Over in our Killjoy Jake Discord, the movie that people have been like begging me to cover is this Crossed adaptation. And I am excited for it, but I think the sadness, oddly enough, left sort of a sour taste in my mouth. And we're going to talk about that and why I've been kind of reluctant to cover this. Let's get into this though. Garth Ennis, a name that should be talked about more because he's written comic books for things that have turned into gigantic hit series, like The Boys probably being the biggest, but my personal favorite is Preacher, which I loved over on AMC. Probably my favorite AMC show outside of like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Crossed, however, is a really interesting series from him as well. And as you can see from this picture right here, it's basically a bunch of people who are infected, but it's a little more keener than something like zombies, something as simple as that. These are people who basically they just can't resist but act on their worst impulses, leading them to murder and do even worse things. Now, we got to see a taste of this in the film The Sadness from 2022. This was a movie directed by Rob Jabez, who is, of course, directing Crossed as well. Now, The Sadness is basically a loose adaptation of Crossed, the comic book. Rob Jabez just basically took a lot of the ideas from that and made it his own. And in some ways, I think he did some things better than the comics, but ultimately, I just don't love the story of The Sadness. It kind of falls apart into like Sci-Fi Channel original madness that doesn't make a whole lot of sense and really just serves the campiness of it. When that could have been like a dark, terrifying, Evil Dead inspired horror story that sometimes goes a little too far, especially with the story. I don't know, man. It crossed the line and it wasn't fun anymore. Crossed, could this be a better adaptation, a better version of The Sadness, essentially? Well, I think that's absolutely the case. The big update today, though, outside of the fact that Rob Jabez is, of course, directing, is we have some of our lead roles that THR reports. Devin Druid from 13 Reasons Why and Ash Santos from American Horror Story will be leading this bad boy. They're playing essentially the leaders of this group of strangers who are just trying to survive this insane apocalypse, and this is one that's worse than something like Dawn of the Dead, because again, these are smart zombies. It's almost like 28 Days Later, but like a little worse, honestly. I think I'd rather be in that apocalypse versus this one, and that's saying something, dude. This is basically like human beings. Like, it's just, we're still people. I don't even think they're undead, so to say, and they're running around just chopping each other up into little bits or doing other horrible things to each other, if you're kind of picking up what I'm putting down there. I think my thing about this movie is that I'm just somebody who, I love me a good campy B movie. I like me some controversial shit, but there's a point where you take it too far and it's mean-spirited. It's not fun anymore, and I don't even think there's points of this movie where it's using that as a way for satire, is using it as a way to say something. Do that. Like, if you're gonna have a zombie doing some awful shit like that, I think it has to mean something. If it's just there for what's the word, indulgence, then that kind of comes off as gross to me. I don't know how I feel about that, but I think that there's a way to do this story with taste and where it's just not too far, and there's times in The Sadness where I just don't feel like it comes off the way that hopefully it wasn't supposed to be intended. But we'll see what Crossed is all about. I'm hoping it's a better version of The Sadness, because man, I'll tell you what, the first 30 minutes of The Sadness I think is one of the best starts to a zombie movie or just infected movie ever. Like, and bottom line, I think it ends really poorly, but man, those first 30 minutes are unbelievable. So I'm hoping that Crossed can capture that first 30 minutes throughout an entire feature film. Let's see what this is all about. Rob, I'm giving you a second chance, my friend. I hope this freaking rocks. Something that may not rock, however, is The Strangers Chapter 2. Now, Rennie has addressed the reshoots a bit after the Chapter 1 reactions, as Alex DiVincenzo is telling us over at Bloody Disgusting. This, of course, we're kind of getting into our first real big San Diego Comic-Con update here. But Rennie says specifically he's listened to the audience. He's listened to the reactions from Chapter 1 that got some pretty heinous reviews after that one came out last year. And now we have Chapter 2 on the way on September 26th of this year, just a few days after my birthday, which I keep bringing up because I think it's really funny. I used to love The Strangers, and now I feel like Rennie Harlan ruined it. But let's talk about what he's got to say. Here's what he's doing to fix the problems from Chapter 1 and maybe go in a better direction with the rest of this trilogy. It's purely from listening to the audience. The first movie came out and we got a lot of feedback from the fans and regular moviegoers. We realized that while we had crafted this 4.5 hour long movie that we had broken into 3 chapters, there was definitely room for learning from the audience experience and listening to the fact that the audience was interested in some things that were not exploring enough yet. One of those things is the fact that people wanted to know more about the strangers. We are not saying what their names are or where they live, if they like lasagna, but we are showing some glimpses of their history in this movie, which I think deepens those characters, makes them more interesting, but doesn't take anything away from them, from the fact that these are real people. They could be anywhere around us, and the killings are totally random. I don't call it reshoots at all, because that's not what it was about. It was about adding and enhancing the experience. Okay, Rennie, so here's my thoughts on this. He's saying what I want to hear. He's saying the fact that we're not going to just completely spell out everything about this, but the Chapter 2 trailer we initially got basically gave us a tease that, hey, here's the people. Here they are. Here's the strangers, and they're no longer strangers. They all have that little tattoo on their necks with the smiley face. Now, maybe this is going somewhere else, and maybe this movie is smarter than I think it is, but it's kind of hard for me to think that and be really confident in that take after what I saw in Chapter 1, which in almost its entirety is a retread of everything we saw from the previous 2 Strangers films from 2008 and 2016. So I just don't have a lot of faith in this movie being smarter than that. I don't know if I genuinely think it's going to reveal who they are and give us some kind of motivation, which for me personally, takes away everything that I think is so cool about the Strangers. Let's just be real here. The strangers are not much to write home about visually. They're people in spirit Halloween costumes. But what makes them cool is the fact that their motive is as simple as they just want to kill. They don't really care who you are. There's no specific motive. This isn't like Ghostface coming after Sidney Prescott. This is way scarier than that. This is the fact that this could happen to literally anybody at any time. You could walk away from that first Strangers movie and the fucking strangers could be at your front door. That's what I love so much about that original movie, that I just feel like Renny Harlin is completely missing about his entire 4.5 hour long movie trying to explain it all away. Now, maybe he won't tell us if they like lasagna or not, but revealing who they are, revealing too much about these characters and deepening them so much to the point where they're full fleshed out Michael Myers style villains, I feel like takes away what I love so much about these characters. And it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what's so great about the strangers. This series in particular is trying to turn them into full on slasher villains, and they're treating them like they would a Michael Myers, like a Jason Voorhees. We're already seeing inspiration from Halloween 2, specifically the original John Carpenter one. Here in chapter 2, we got Madeline Pesh waking up in the hospital after surviving the first encounter, which even that I feel takes away from what I love so much about the strangers. A slasher film that does look good, however, is the new Silent Night, Deadly Night, baby. So much to talk about with this one. So our big update essentially is that we got the first teaser trailer, our first look at some footage from this new movie that arrives on December 12th, perfectly in time, by the way, for a Christmas release, kind of. We have playing Billy Chapman this time around is Rowan Campbell, a guy who I'm personally a huge fan of, but I just don't think has had many very good film roles, and that's not exactly his fault. He is a man that I feel is so humble in the fact that his first big breakout role was Halloween Ends, and it just got shat upon by critics, like big time. Halloween fans were mostly pissed off, except for a little vocal minority that really loved the film. But Rowan Campbell, he's a guy that I really do love, because I do think he's always trying, even in a movie like that. He understands what it means to be a performer. Even when you're not working with good material, you got to just put in the effort. And this guy does that, man. And I've seen him in better roles, thankfully, since then, especially in this year's The Monkey, which I feel like is my favorite role from the guy so far, even though it is kind of like a side role. This, I think, is going to be the absolute best thing from him so far, though, because we got him playing this just super messed up in the head killer Santa Claus character. And I'm sure this is going to be a reinvention for Mike P. Nelson based on what he's done with other franchises in the past. I just know that this is going to be something special based off of that teaser that looks very similar to the 84 film in the way it's shot and the way that it feels. We're doing this slasher series right, which is a very big thing. Silent Night, Deadly Night, the original film, is a record-breaking movie that really pissed a lot of people off. Protesters everywhere, they didn't like the idea of a killer Santa Claus, and here we are 40 years later where that's still happening. Terrifier 3 getting protested last year, and I'm sure this one will again as well. I guess that's 41 years now because that was 84. So that's exciting. 2 years of killer Santa Claus movies back to back. Rock on, baby. Rock on Cineverse, the same company doing it. Now let's talk a little bit about director Mike P. Nelson, who's doing this one, who is a guy I'm a very big fan of. I loved his Wrong Turn remake, which was a huge reimagining of that franchise. So much so to the point where fans of the original weren't even crazy about that one because it was just too far. It was too much of a far cry from what the original film was. But I personally loved it as a standalone film because it was just such a different and crazy idea, and it was executed really well. And I think what I really liked about that movie in particular is they found a way to keep the brutality of the series alive and well, while also hitting on a totally different topic, idea, threat in general. But Mike P. Nelson, I think he's a director that understands what franchise fans want from new continuations while still being able to tell a fresh story. And I think that's what we're going to get here in Silent Night, Deadly Night, is we're going to get a guy running around being crazy, yelling punish while axing people in the face that he doesn't particularly care for, because that's what Silent Night, Deadly Night is at its core. But will the motivation, will the setup be a little different than the original movie? That's what I'm hoping for. I'm really hoping to see some of just a brand new take on it while still delivering what we love about this series, which is its campy, bloody moments and kills. Because let's be honest, what's so great about that original film? It's the killer. It's Billy Chapman. I think he's just one of the most underrated and less talked about slashers for just the performance from the original, the idea in general. I feel like there's just so many iconic moments from that original film that make it probably the best of the series, even though I understand if you want to say that Garbage Day is the best one. But I think Silent Night, Deadly Night 2025, that's going to be the best one in this franchise. Hot take. I have a lot of faith in this movie. I am absolutely loving the teaser trailer. It's probably the slasher film I'm the most excited for with the rest of the year. But let's see what this is all about. Cineverse, rock it out with another killer Santa Claus movie. We were just talking about the monkey from Osgood Perkins. Let's see what he's saying about his Leatherface adaptation, or if that's even happening, I guess. So last we heard about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, Neon, alongside many other horror companies or just indie companies in general, were looking at trying to get their hands on the rights to Texas Chainsaw. Now, Osgood Perkins has given us a bit of an update, because let's be real, I think one of the companies we're the most excited about potentially getting their grubby little hands on this franchise is Neon, who is, without a doubt, put out some of the best horror movies from the 2020s. I mean, oh my God, dude. The stuff that they've done with the Cronenbergs, with Osgood Perkins, man, I mean, this has been seriously some of the better movies of this entire decade, without a doubt. I could see them showing up multiple times on a top 10 list of the decade so far. This company, man, Neon, they're just killing it. It was A24 last decade, and now it's Neon this decade. That's how I feel about it when it comes to the indie stuff. But just like A24, they're also trying to get into some big franchises like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which totally understandable. Lots of money to be made there. And in my opinion, still good stories to tell. Oz talks a little bit about what he would want to do essentially with Leatherface. And one of the things that this article hits on the most is that someone at San Diego Comic-Con during this panel with a bunch of upcoming horror directors from who are working with Neon, he was asked if they would want to cast a neurodivergent actor to play Leatherface, as many people have speculated that this is a character that was on the autistic spectrum. And what he said about that is, my producing partners and I, we went down a path with Texas Chainsaw. To be honest with you, I don't know what's happening with it, but we were certainly in the conversation for it. But Oz really does like the idea of having a neurodivergent Leatherface, saying it goes back to Frankenstein, or wherever you want to be with monsters that are usually the misunderstood sensitive type. I think your idea is beautiful. I don't see a reason why not. And I totally agree with that. That would be a fun, like, I don't even want to say that's a fun spin, because I feel like that's always just been a part of Leatherface, but it would be a fun thing to put a focal point on. Kind of like how the most recent Nosferatu adaptation put a little more of a focus on the fact of like how women were sexually repressed back in that time period. You know what I mean? That was such a big focal point of this new take on it, where that was a small part of the original Nosferatu. It ended up being like one of the biggest things about the Robert Eggers versions. If Osgood Perkins did get his hands on this franchise, could we put a little more of a magnifying glass on that element? How, you know, Bubba here has basically been abused with family members who don't really understand what's going on with them. That could be a really interesting angle to take the franchise down. And again, just kind of have a dark and grittier tone that has something new to say. Because a lot of people may disagree with this, and that's totally fine. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise has just always been political. The very best movies in this franchise have a political edge to them. They have something to say. And I feel like if you're going to make a new one, you got to be saying something with it. You got to have something fun. I mean, even Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which is a goofier movie, I feel like still has a lot of commentary that is the one really big thing that carries over from the first movie into the second Tobe Hooper film. So can this movie do the same thing? I'm sure Oz would want to get into something like that. My only real concern with an Osgood Perkins Texas Chainsaw is he's a guy who loves doing goofier horror. And there's nothing wrong with that, but Texas Chainsaw needs a little bit of a reset, needs to go back to what made that original so great. Hell, what made the 2003 movie so great. So can we find that in a new adaptation where the last couple of installments, hell, the last 3 installments have been a little goofier, a little more on the campy edge? I mean, what was the fucking line? Do your thing, cuz, from the from the 3D movie, Leatherface, you got people jumping out of windows, exploding and shit. And then the 2022 movie, I mean, oh my God.
Try anything and you're canceled, bro.
Come on now. These are all campier installments. Can we get back to the darker and grittier vibes? Can we do that with Osgood Perkins? It's a tough question, because he does like to make things a little goofier. We saw that in his last 2 films for sure. But I will say Osgood Perkins, He has a new movie coming out this year called Keeper, and it's being described as a darker trip for Mr. Perkins. Could this show off some of his just darker storytelling vibes? It seems that way from the trailer if you've seen it, and I think if he really proves himself with this next installment, if Keeper is another big hit for the guy, and it's reviewed well, I really think that, yes, he would be a good choice for Texas Chainsaw. But it all depends. It all just depends on what this movie's about, and if he's going to bring that same energy to the franchise, like hopefully he does with whatever this Keeper movie ends up being. It welcomed the DERRY, baby. Oh, this looks good. Maybe not as cool as this sick-ass motherfucking raccoon, but I will say it welcomed the DERRY. I'm really excited for this, especially after this new teaser trailer. Essentially, what we get in the teaser trailer is more of the same from what we've already seen footage-wise from this franchise. It's a bunch of kids on bikes trying to figure out what the hell's going on in their town. It's definitely those vibes, but I'm okay with that because it's a formula that's tried and true and works most of the time. Let's be honest. Are we sick of it though? I think that's the question that this that this new series is going to answer. Will it find something new to tell in that kind of bizarre subgenre of nostalgia? I have to admit though, I am really excited about this series. I really like the It movies, man. There's yet to be an It property that I didn't really like. Even It Chapter 2 that ends with bullying the fucking guy to death. Whatever, man. I still had a fun time with that movie. I don't know. I'm an It Chapter 2 apologist. We get to see little hints of Bill Skarsgård playing the iconic role again, which is exciting. This is kind of, honest to God, this is one of the better shots of him we've gotten throughout all of all of the Welcome to DERRY marketing. But we do get to see some shots of him like maybe reaching out his hand during some fires. Maybe that could be Mike's dad in the fire that we kind of know about from the movies. Something else I wanted to point out for some Stephen King fans out there is that we're once again kind of teasing the idea that this is all happening in the same universe as other Mr. King stories, like Shawshank State Prison, this little bus being teased in the new trailer. I love that. That's fun. It's very similar to what like Castle Rock did, for instance, that little TV series that kind of pushed a bunch of different King stories all into one area, all the ones that take place in Castle Rock, which is a constant location for a lot of Mr. King stories. But what I think is really exciting about this in particular is that it's nothing new to say that all these stories are in the same universe. The Dark Tower series from Mr. King kind of does that, kind of connects all of them. But this could also tease the idea that more Stephen King elements will be introduced into this series. Let's be totally real with ourselves here. This is a 3-season television series that Andy and Barbara Muschietti are trying to push forward. And I think they're going to incorporate some ideas from other King properties that they really like into all these seasons of the show. I mean, don't forget, we're really basing this first season off of like just a few little notes from Mike Hanlon throughout the book, and trying to build out an entire, even bigger story than what the movies were. Just basically back in 2017. So they got to pull from other places too. And what other place to do that from, unlike Mr. King's books? I think that's the best place that would be the best place to start for sure, to build more story, to make it feel even more Stephen King. Is this going to be It Chapter 1 good? Probably not, but I think it's going to explore some more interesting ideas. Maybe some more ambitious ideas, which is everyone going to like that? I don't know, but it's something I'm excited about nonetheless. And I can't wait to see this show on HBO Max, which, yes, it's HBO Max now, not Max any longer. God, I hated that. And oh my God, our biggest story, without a doubt, is everything going on with Predator Badlands. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we got some fun things to talk about. So we got a brand new trailer earlier on this week. Here's a really cool shot, basically. A new poster. This is kind of a shot from it, though, too. We're learning a lot about this movie, but we're just learning a lot about where the Predator universe and Predator and Alien universes are going, essentially, from this past week. So many things to talk about. So in this new trailer, we got to learn kind of the relationship a little more between Deck here and Thea, which I believe are their names, who are basically our lead roles in this new movie. Doing something very different here. We're following the Predator this time around. We're kind of rooting for the guy too. We want him to win his basically battle to define himself. We're also following a Weyland-Yutani android played by Elle Fanning here. Now, we know from director Dan Trachtenberg, who's teased a Bloody Disgusting before, that she's going to be playing multiple roles. I've had a ton of different theories about this. Are we going to meet like the real life person that this synthetic is based off of? Or maybe something else I want to throw out there just to be different and weird. What if there's another synthetic that looks exactly like her running around with a totally different motivation? Because her motivation here is it looks like at least, to be saved, to just survive. She doesn't have legs, is what we learned from the new trailer, and and Deck here is just kind of carrying her around on his back. So it's going to be a really interesting and weird relationship between robot and alien, essentially, that we're following through this movie. I mean, I can't name too many films that are similar to that. That is such a different and bizarre concept to explore, which is really exciting. But probably the most exciting thing, if I'm being totally honest, is everything going on with Predator Killer of Killers. Now, we thought that this movie was done. We got to see it back in June, and it rocked. It's one of my favorite horror movies of the year, and it's a weird little animated anthology flick. This one snuck up on me, I'll tell you what. No idea this was going to be as good as it was, but we have an extended cut that is premiered on Hulu that I got to watch over the weekend that features Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mike from Predator 2. These two characters are alive and well, apparently, frozen in the same chamber that Naru was in at the end of this film. So basically what we're teasing here, what is coming to mind here at least, is that we're going to basically push all of this forward towards some sort of gigantic film, Avengers level event that features a bunch of the characters from the Predator's past. Now, Dan Trachtenberg has also teased the idea of doing another Predator movie, live action one at that, after Badlands comes out in November. Could it be an Alien versus Predator movie? Because, like I was saying a minute ago, we're teasing the fact that we're basically doing an Alien versus Predator movie come this winter with Predator Badlands. It features Weyland-Yutani Synthetics teaming up with the Predator. So that's, in a way, that is an Alien versus Predator film. These movies take place in the same universe, but what if we have a movie where, you know, the Xenomorph and the Predator aren't fighting each other? Can we do a movie where it's just elements from both franchises just coexisting? And that's what Badlands essentially is going to be. But let's be real here. What do we want from all of this? Where do we want this to build towards? An Alien versus Predator movie. I want to see predators and people ripping Xenomorph heads off, getting melted with acid blood. I want to get back to that again. And I think Dan Trachtenberg is leading us up to what could be the most grandiose version of Alien versus Predator yet, featuring characters from the Predator universe. Could you imagine Dutch fighting a fucking Xenomorph? Oh my God. I mean, the fan in me, my head would just explode. Is that just fan service all day, every day? Kind of, but maybe Dan Trachtenberg can do it in a way that actually feels earned, actually feels like a solid story, not just putting these two characters in a room to fight, right? Not just mashing action figures, even though how I'm describing it, let's be real, kind of sounds like that. You know, I think that's my problem with a lot of franchise continuations these days. They kind of just make things happen and they don't have a really good way of getting there. It was one of my biggest reasons for criticizing the new I Know What You Did Last Summer. They just wanted to do that twist at the end. And if you haven't seen the film yet, I won't spoil it, but I just feel like they wanted to get to that so bad that they forgot to set it up properly. And if you're going to do something as like just gigantic as you're bringing back a character that hasn't been seen in the franchise since the 80s, and a character who hasn't been seen in the franchise since the 90s, we're doing this in a really creative way that works with everything that's already been set up in this universe. And now we're saying that basically all the people who have defeated a Predator at some point are frozen in this weird fucking chamber on another planet. I love this idea. This feels perfectly in line with the sci-fi ideals of this franchise, and it's starting to get to a place where I feel like it could be an earned storyline, where things happening maybe in Alien Romulus, things happening in Dan Trachtenberg's Predator films, all kind of meet into one film. It's going to take a lot of like genuine setup to get to that point, but I feel like that's why we're getting an Alien Romulus sequel. That's why we're doing Predator Badlands, and then we're maybe meshing it all into one big film sometime in the future that Fede Alvarez and Dan Trachtenberg can be directing. These are, in my opinion, two of the best guys making movies right now, at least in franchises, and I'm just so excited to see what this ultimately ends up being. Definitely check out this extended cut of Killer of Killers. If you have not seen it yet, it's over on Hulu. Whew, a lot of really exciting things happening in the world of horror, folks. What's the most exciting thing to you? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.